Hello, welcome, David, to the Magic FX show. We've got you here, or also known as Project 618. You might find him on Instagram there. And he's also a psychology master for the Magic FX Academy. Isn't that right, David?
It is, Dan. Thank you very much for having me on. So I'm working with yourself and the members in the community to, overcome their psychological barriers, so to speak, and try and get the best performance, as traders out of them as we can. That's basically sort of what I do really, is I work with traders, to get there, in a 60-foot view. I help traders reach their peak performance within their own trading. So, that's obviously quite a wide topic area. Which obviously we pinpoint with each of the members, and then we can work on those specific topics, and help them overcome them.
Absolutely. So in today's video, kind of just wanted to go over some of the basic obstacles of psychology that pretty much all traders will go through at some point in their journey in trading. The same things I found come up over and over again through talking to other traders and being in communities. It's the same questions and the same issues. Have you found it's almost like a universal experience for traders to go through these things?
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's almost a bit of a rite of passage as well. As much as we often talk about these things as well, people have to experience them themselves to get the full appreciation of what it is. But I mean, we all suffer from mainly the same. Obviously, we all vary from different psychological things, but mainly it's all to do with, how we've been brought up, the culture we've been around, society, and it's all hardwired subconscious stuff that, is through the humanitarian, thesis, and it just gets manifested exponentially with trading, because trading's such a sort of microclimate of emotions. It just gets magnified like 100 times, and people struggle trying to identify what those are. So, and I think a lot of people also think that they're on their own. Like with a lot of things, they think that they're on their own, on the trading side of things. They don't not quite sure about, a specific element of the strategy, but psychologically as well, everyone goes through the same shit. It's not, don't feel like, oh, I don't really want to ask that because I'm going to sound a bit stupid, because 9 times out of 10 we've all been through it, and you don't get immune to it either. You just learn coping mechanisms to sort of deal with those emotions when they arise. So it's definitely something common that I've seen throughout my journey, especially.
There's a sort of an image, isn't there, of a successful trader, that they're this almost god that's immune to emotions and feelings. And do you think that exists, or do you think, like you almost kind of said there, it's just an endless struggle that it gets easier, you learn how to deal with it, but those emotions are always there? I mean, they're still there for me, 100%. I have bad days. I have days when I want to throw the computer out the window still. Is that something?
But it's getting to that point where you can realize and catch those emotions when they bubble up. Like, so for instance, you might be looking at a chart and you're seeing a setup play out, but it doesn't quite, hit your level or something like that. The entry criteria isn't just quite met up. So you can't get involved in the trade. And then you see it like absolutely moon, goes and does, where you would have, and you think, oh, I should have been in that. And then traders will often then not see that emotion building up in them, and then they'll try and chase it. And then what they end up doing by chasing it is, well, one, it's a bit of FOMO, but they're not then operating from a state of like equilibrium. So they've tilted themselves more on one side than the other, so they can't they can't analyze the trade. It might be a valid scaling trade, it might be a valid entry higher up the leg, but they can't analyze it from an equilibrium point. So they either mess up the entry and then they get stopped out, and then they're like getting even more het up. And it's just about realizing that you've got yourself in that emotional state to start with, asking yourself a few sort of questions, around yourself that, you've worked on, okay, I've missed that trade. Is there an opportunity further up the leg, which is still valid and meets my entry criteria? Can I get involved with that? Am I going to be happy taking an L there if I get involved in it? And it's just neutralizing the body's emotional response, because when we get that feeling in our body, we've all got that, you get the sweaty armpits and all that sort of thing. The mind and the body is wanting an answer to why you're getting in that state. It's wanting to know. So you need to ask yourself some logical questions for it to then to say, oh, right, okay, well, we've got to that heightened state, but this is the reason why. So we can bring ourselves down a little bit more and then step back away from looking at it and be objective about what's presented in front of us, and then make a logical, objective decision about what to do next, sort of thing. So yeah. It's I forgot what the original question was, but yeah.
No, that was great. So it's having a sense of self-awareness of when your emotions are heightened. So what could be sort of a practical way of doing that? Was it, like you said, have, after you've taken a trade or missed a trade, have a checklist of questions that you ask yourself to sort of ground yourself back into that equilibrium
state? I mean, there's a number of factors really that they're all meshing together, but I think first of all, you've got, if you're still suffering from emotional swings, so you're either FOMO in trades, over trading too much, all these common trader mistakes. And I think first of all, you need to have an entry criteria checklist. So, you've got a set trading plan, a set way of looking at the market that you can say, right, this meets X criteria, and that that's your edge. I think if you haven't got that set, 90% certain, there's going to be a bit of ambiguity, because there's always a little bit of discretion in trading. But I think you need that almost rigid set so that you can say, right, okay, well, this has met my entry criteria, I'm willing to take this trade. But I think also as well, journaling's a big thing, especially when you're either new or developing a strategy. Journaling your trades, whether you've missed them, whether you've entered them, whether it's a loss, and then being objective to yourself and truthful to yourself, and not just answering why you think that was a losing trade, but also noting down what emotions you felt. So, well, I took that position there, but then I had got really hot and sweaty, and I thought I'd missed the move because there was a big, push away from my area. So I was looking to get in, and I took this at this area, sort of FOMOing into it. And it's sort of catching those, and you're not going to get it from, one or two trades. This is like a series of trades, 10, 20, 30 trades, and just like you look at commonalities in your trading and your edge, you're also looking for those commonalities in, the psychology side of things, so like your emotions that are coming up, or, and when you can start sort of seeing these, a pattern to what's coming up, you can say, right, okay, well, I'm seeing that this pattern's emerging quite often when I'm seeing the move explode away. So now that I've realized that, you can sort of almost catch yourself doing it. And when you can catch yourself doing it and then ask yourself some questions like, okay, I'm a FOMO into this trade. You're asking yourself that question, and it's like a yes or no answer, So if it's a yes, it's like, okay, well, I can step back now. I need to step back for a minute. Or a practical thing might be, right, okay, when I realize that I'm FOMOing into a trade, I step away from the computer for 5 minutes. And if you miss the trade, you miss the trade. You know, you've got to set these little hurdles in place so that you can build on your confidence in self-analyzing yourself in the moment.
Yeah.
And it gets easier. You know, it's difficult to start with, but it gets easier, you know, and you can just start doing these things, you know, like really quick, you know, and you can start catching yourself in the moment a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's all about just doing that consistently, right? You know, it can seem like, oh God, I've got to record all these trades and do all this journaling before I make any improvements, or it's going to take so much time. But just start doing it, and you know, you will see that improvement slowly and gradually over time. But if you don't start doing it, it's never going to happen.
No, I think I mean it's that whole thing, you know, just start. You know, life's too short to be, you know, worrying about, oh, fucking, I've got a journal, I've got to do this, that, and the other. Well,
yeah,
you know, if you want something that's certain and easy, but, you know, obviously there's a reason why you're looking at trading. You know, go and get a job, you know, go and do a 9 to 5, you know, you haven't got to think about anything.
Exactly.
But, you know, unfortunately, just like any other, you know, high skill profession, you know, whether that's, you know, sports or, you know, like surgeons and, you know, barristers and things like that, you know, they don't just fucking sit there like thinking, oh yeah, I've done me 7-8 years of school and now I can just sit back. You know, they're constantly on courses, on, you know, going to seminars and, you know, brushing up on the latest technology. You know, we're blessed with trading that we don't have to scale our labor rate to have an extramental return. So we put the same effort in, but the same effort can be 10, 20x what we put in.
Yeah.
You know, so
at the same time, there's also psychological hurdles to overcome when you do start increasing the number size with the money and funds and everything. So I suppose that's the workload that increases, is the psychological load that increases rather than actually the actual effort of the work. And that you know, that's the thing that's always going to be expanding with trading, is your psychology and yourself. It's, you almost have to be your own therapist in a way through this journey, don't you? And certainly,
and that's good. Why, you know, it's good to have a community, or, you know, like when I work with traders, you know, on a one-on-one basis, you know, it's good to be able to talk to someone else who's been there and done that and give you advice and practical solutions to, you know, work around that problem, you know, because it's all well and good, you know, us saying, oh yeah, you've got to start journaling, doing this, that, and the other. But, you know, you might find that doing that isn't working for you. So you need to, you know, be able to talk to someone to say, look, you know, this isn't working. Okay, well, perhaps it's something else, you know, and you've got to, and it might be, it's almost is like therapy. Like you say, you've got to actually talk about shit that might be difficult for you. You know, it might be some personal stuff that you've got to deal with yourself, and maybe even go to, you know, a proper clinical psychologist, you know, to get that stuff sorted. But yeah, it's just, just with anything, you know, whether you're struggling with your trading, you know, and you know, you're not consistent, is commit to one thing and just start and just do all the practical steps that you need to get to a point where you need to get to. You know, make a little checklist of goals, you know, saying, I'm going to study each section of the content, make sure I know it off the back of my hand, I know exactly what's going on. And, you know, give yourself a week for each one, or 2 weeks, or 3 weeks, or 4 weeks. It doesn't matter. You know, you're going to get there, but just commit to one thing and just be consistent, which is, you know, the main thing with everything. You just got to turn up and be consistent and do it until you can say, okay, right, okay, well, and then when you get to that consistency point, it's then about the tiny little 1%. You know, it's like the marginal gains. Then it's like, you know, because I was a big cyclist before, so, you know, Team Sky were, you know, a big thing around, you know, sort of time I started cycling, you know, and those 1% marginal gains is like they were looking at, should we be taking our own mattresses to the hotels that they were staying in, because they were staying in like dog shit hotels, in the middle of the French Alps and stuff, with like shit beds. So they were like, well, we're going to take our own mattresses. And it's their own individual riders' mattresses, not just a mattress, like a specific mattress that's been tailored for them, and the pillows and your nutrition. And it's the same for, when you get to that level in your trading, it's like, right, okay, well, can I improve my morning routine slightly? What works for me? What doesn't work for me? And trying out these little things, and and that's all about journaling as well. It's like, well, I tried this for 2 weeks and I didn't really see a benefit there, so I'm going to try this instead. Or I'm shit in mornings, so I'm going to trade New York, or whatever time zone you're in, or vice versa. If you're not a morning person, don't fucking get up and trade London. You've got to make trading fit you. So yeah, I think that's a big thing as well. People think that they've got to be at the screens all the time, and that comes from our work culture. If you're not seen to be doing anything, then you must be either shit or skiving or doing something. But as traders, everything that we're doing that's not at the screen should be benefiting us in one way. So if you're off, and you're going to see your friends, that's benefiting you because it's giving you a better state of mental health. You're feeling a bit more fulfilled and things like that, or going to the gym, or you're cooking, or you're helping your spouse out, or doing something with the kids, or whatever it is. You've got to see that as a benefit to your trading, and if you can link those activities that way, you'll be in a much stronger position to build those habits into your life, and you will see a marked improvement.
Absolutely. I know for a fact that my worst days have been ones where I've just been sat at the computer all day long. And even if you've had a couple of good trades, you have that feel. Like, I think just sitting in front of a screen alone is not only bad for trading, but bad for your mood and mindset, and obviously your physical self anyway. So yeah, definitely do. I like to go to the gym after the London session, just because it gets me out of that mindset. If it's been a bad trading session, I mean, I say bad, the only bad trading session is one where you haven't stuck to your plan, I would say. If it's been a particularly boring one, it gets you out of that sort of, if FOMO is starting to creep in, or anything like that, it just gets you out of that mind frame, and feeling good again. It's like a reset button.
Yeah. Well, when you start feeling tired, it's when you start making mistakes.
Yeah.
So you've got to catch yourself, okay, I'm feeling tired, I'm a bit more lethargic, so I'm just going to switch off and get away from the screen, which is, it's hard to do, don't get me wrong. I mean, we've all done it, we've all sat there for fucking 8-9 hours, and got absolutely like brain fog, and you're like, you take a trade and you're like, well, fucking hell, it wasn't even a fucking trade, like, and it's just because you're not mentally alert enough to be able to operate from a flow state. And it's just all about, trading is, your edge is either on or it's not, and you can't decide whether it's on or it's off. Only the market can. And unfortunately, if you're trading, London or New York or whatever, or depending on what your sessions you're trading, you either get a setup or you don't get a setup, and you can't be frustrated that a set, especially because I only trade London,
right?
So you can't get frustrated with missing moves, especially like if it's, it could have just ranged all morning, and then it just pops in the afternoon, and you're like, oh, it was like fucking perfect setup, but it was perfect setup, but it wasn't in your session, so you can't get emotionally tied to it. It's very difficult to do. I still do it now as well. Sometimes you'll flick the chart on in the morning to do your morning analysis from the day before, and you've seen it popped, and you're like, fucking, I'll hit that level, clean as a whistle, exact entry criteria, and you just gotta, it's either there or it's not when you're at the screen. So
exactly.
And it's very difficult to get around that, especially when you're new to trading. We still do it now. I've been trading for 3 years now, and I still get hung up sometimes on looking at that sort of stuff, especially when you haven't taken it, and it really creeps up on you when you haven't taken a trade for a few days.
Yeah.
So if you haven't taken a trade for a few days, and then you have to be mentally aware that, okay, I haven't taken a trade for a few days, but that doesn't mean that I just need to take a trade. It's still got to fit my rules. So in some aspects, the longer you go without trading, the more aware you have to be of your thoughts and emotions when you're going to enter a trade.
Yeah. You can even start having things like wanting to change your whole plan just because you haven't been able to take a trade in the past few days, and you've really got to be aware of that, like just making changes on the fly. And yeah, I mean, even like lately for me, EU has not delivered on entries, and the prices has been fairly rangy, or when it has moved, it hasn't really fit my criteria. And I don't know if you've found the same lately. It hasn't been the best week or couple of weeks. And I notice in myself getting a bit antsy around it. I mean, on top of the fact that I've got the community now, and obviously the new challenge with that is wanting to be able to share good trades with everyone and the experience of being in trades, and that's just not occurring too much at the moment. So there's all sorts of things that come up when the market's low. You're absolutely right. It's a killer on the psychology, not taking trades. So how do you deal with that more? Like, I suppose it's FOMO is what we're talking about in a way, although not really, because sometimes it's just
it's a bit of both, really. I mean, because although we don't trade exactly the same, we trade similar, but we both trade EU. So when you're specialized on one specific market, you're so tuned into that market that you're not aware of anything else. So you know exactly what's going on that pair, down to like, it broke 15M structure, at fucking 10 o'clock yesterday morning or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it on an intimate basis.
Yeah.
But because we're so attuned to it and we're only looking at that one instrument, it seems like a very long time. So 3 days feels like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
And in reality, like the first 2 weeks of January were pretty good. But the last, there's been a few entries for me anyway, the last week, last 5 trading days, but they've just not been super clean, or they've set up in New York,
right,
or Asia. Asia's been given some quite clean trades actually the last few weeks, but it's because we've got that regency bias. What's just happened, we're like, we think 2 weeks ago was a long time ago, but it's only because we're so focused on one area, we're not looking out at the bigger picture, thinking, well, okay, well, actually the first, like, even if you only caught the first week in January, I mean, realistically, we know with the edge that we trade, we only need 3-4 good trades a month. So, but it's just always fighting that mental side of saying, okay, well, I haven't caught a trade for 3 days. It's not the end of the world. There will be another setup. I've just got to be patient, because that's, as traders, our biggest responsibility is managing risk. And that's really the number one thing, managing risk. So that means managing your drawdown. So if you're taking off-edge trades and or FOMO and into stuff, you're messing with your overall expectancy of your trading plan, your trading system, your business at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And it's fighting that urge of needing to trade over wanting to trade, and it's a very fine line, and we're not always going to get it right. I'm not saying that we're all going to be here like robots, saying, oh yes, I'm okay, I've not taken a trade and I'm not emotional about it. You're going to get fucking emotional. You're going to be like, right, I'm taking a trade for 4 days. Fucking hell, is it me? Is it the market?
Yeah.
Have I lost my, is it the edge? Have I lost it? I mean, it's fucking forward, like backing yourself out and asking yourself some simple questions like, is it me, or is the edge still there? It's just not happened in my session, or it's just not been quite as clean. All right, it's not been quite as clean. Okay, well, I've got a logical reason for that. So if I'm still seeing that pattern over the next week, do I need to just, be a bit more diligent about what I'm looking at, and just, being a bit more specific about focusing on something rather than just trying to throw your toys out the pram and, lose your banana. And then like, before you know it, you've got like a 10% drawdown.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Now I've got a couple of questions written down here, and it's things that I've seen.
Go on.
There's just things that I've seen come up in the community psychology wise, and I think they're common things that come up. And one of them is accepting losses as part of the process. A lot of people have problems with losses. I think you come into trading and come into a new strategy or whatever, and you think, if I'm trading right, it's going to be a winner every time. Obviously, that's not true. You are going to take losses. Where trading is about trading an edge, and it's probably likely that you're going to take more losses than you are winners. But how can people help themselves to accept losses better?
I mean, this is a societal thing as well. When people struggle with winning and losing, which, first of all, you've got to try and understand that winning and losing, when you've got if you've not got an edge, it's predefined, where you've got a way to analyze the market repeatedly, where you've got entry criteria, you've got predefined risk. So that's how much you're risking and where your stop loss is going to be, and an excellent exit management plan. So where you're going to take profits, how you're going to manage a trade, all like, if you haven't got any of them, then you're basically gambling. You may as well go to the casino and donate your money, or give it to me, because you can't benchmark yourself against anything. So once you've got that in place and you've still got this emotional response, you've then got to look at, from a societal point of view, we've all been brought up on winning and being right are fundamental to everything, whether that's education, so you've got to have good grades to get a good job, you've got to do, even to some extent, in sport, winning and losing. Winning's everything, losing's, kicking the nuts, like, but it's not going to just happen like that. But if you can put some reasoning again behind the winning and losing, like I've just said, okay, well, yeah, he's right. I have been, in a home environment where I was pushed by my parents to get excellent grades, and if I didn't get 90%, then I thought I was a failure and all this sort of thing. So you've got all these deep rooted psychological things that have got nothing to do with trading, but they surface from the emotional response that we get from trading and the feedback that the market has given us. But I think it was Mark Douglas that said that the market doesn't, it's not out there to hurt you. It's just printing information. It's just information on the screen. It's not hurtful. It's not, going to stab you in the face or anything like that. It's just information. And, it's, if you've got those rules for your edge and you can say, okay, I followed my rules of my edge, perfectly, and you take a loss, that's great. If you took a trade and it was a winner, it's equally, as great. It's when you don't follow your plan, and equally if you get a winner or a loser by not following it, is where you get these bad habits and psychological build up of, okay, well, I did that and I got away with it last time, so I can do it again.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, with trading, it'll creep up on you and it'll smack you in the face, as we all know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That was a good.
I think I saw this. I've just pulled it up. So, the 5 fundamental truths that from Mark Douglas, and this sort of ties in with quite a lot of things. But anything can happen. You don't need to know what's going to happen next in order to make money. We've all been there when we first started trading. Click buy. It was a winner. Didn't know what we were doing.
Yep.
You don't need to know what to do to make money. There's a random distribution between wins and losses for any given set of variables that define an edge. So we never know, with our edge, if a trade is going to be a winner or a loser. It might look exactly the same as the last winner or the last loser, but we've got no way of knowing that.
Yeah.
And then an edge is nothing more than an indicator of a higher probability of one thing happening over another, which again, it's all about the probabilities. And then I think this is one thing just talking about, because obviously we're looking at 4 patterns in the market that repeat themselves, but every moment in the market is unique. So like that's what I was saying, once you can get your head around, although that pattern appeared previously and it was a winner, doesn't mean that this next, because there's different players in the market, there's a different algorithm might be on at that time, you just don't know. So that's why you've got to have that fixed edge that you can stick to, and you can say, right, I'll stick to that, stuck to the rules. And then if you've taken 20 trades in a row and they're all losers, then you need to look at, then it's a case of, right, okay, well, I need to step back, stop trading. Something's not right here. Either I'm not reading the market correctly, or my edges either stop working or it's not working at all, and then move from there. It's not a case of you take 2 losses and then change your fucking strategy, because you're not going to, you've not got the data set there to back it up.
Yeah, and it's also where journaling comes into play as well, isn't it? Because if you don't have that data to look back on, you don't actually know whether you've followed your plan or not. Because I know in the past, when I've had longer losing streaks and I've looked back over the trades I took during that streak, the problem wasn't the strategy. The problem was I must have been getting too emotional and taking trades that didn't fit the plan at that time. And it seemed like more than half of the trades that I was taking were, quite shockingly, just didn't fit any sort of plan I had. And at the time, it seemed like perfectly valid trades I was taking. But it's how it really showed how psychology and emotions can just, completely take you out of that equilibrium state that you speak about, and make you take just some stupid entries.
Yeah. I mean, and we're also going to take stupid entries. It's not, you're not just going to be like, okay, I've got to a certain point and I'm never going to take any stupid entries. You're all going to, like, we're human, we're going to make mistakes, and it's okay making mistakes. You just got to make sure that you're not making the same mistakes repeatedly over a consistent pattern, and it's just a lot to do with trading. If you're willing to, I mean, to be fair, I mean, trading's, for me, made me as a person so much more aware just of myself, of other people. And it's taken me to, like, I think I'm not like spiritual or anything, but like it's taken me to another sort of level, so to speak, in certain terms of how, just in in general in life as well, just how I speak to people, or when someone talks to you and they say something and it riles you, and you're like, I can catch that feeling now, and I'm like, well, did they mean it in that way, or is that my interpretation of what they're saying, and I'm taking it in a bad way? Or you might have had some fucking shit news, like, and you're a bit pissed off. Someone says something to you, and you snap straight at them, but they meant it in a different way. If you can catch yourself before, just give you that little, half a second to think about it, and you can be a better person, in terms of your responses, and also be better in terms of, saying, I'm not quite sure if you meant that to come across in that way. I thought that was a bit, confrontational how you've said that. It's made me feel a bit, and then they might say, oh no, I didn't mean it to sound like that. And I was like, okay. And then you can sort of nullify, because that could have turned into, I know people who are very, their relationships are, up and down like this, bottle of pop sort of scenarios.
Yeah.
And, a lot of it is sort of down to those sort of situations where you're just, responding off the heat of the moment thing, and it just can explode like that in your face. And it's the same with trading. You've got that, you can take yourself down a rabbit hole, and unless you can pull yourself out of it, you could have talked yourself out of a strategy that's really good, but you think it's completely rubbish but you haven't stuck to the edge. But because you've looked back at it through your journaling, like you said you did, you were like, well, actually, the edge is fine. It was me.
Yeah.
That was the issue. So what was I doing there? What was going on in my personal life? Because it's all these little things that we don't think actually affect us, but they do. It might be, you might think, oh, well, actually, I was really stressed because, the dog wasn't very well, or it could be, little inconsequential things like, you've had an argument with your mum, or, things like this. You've got that in the back of your mind that you're not aware of, but your subconscious is, and it's trying to process that, and it manifests itself out in a different way. And then, so we're all fucked basically.
No, that's interesting actually. The parallels between your relationship to trading and your relationship to people as well. I suppose the way you said about looking back on previous trades could be the same way if you look back on a previous relationship where, in your head you thought they were the whole problem. If you actually saw these moments and broke down things maybe from more of their point of view, you could see issues that you had that were contributing to the problem. And like I say, it could be your trading. Anyway, so another thing, which is along similar lines, was an issue with holding on to winning trades when you're in them.
This is a big, big problem for, I would say, 90% of inconsistent traders. It's comes down to, again, as much as the entry is important, exit management, well, I'd say stop loss and risk are number one. Entries kind of take care of themselves if you're following an entry criteria, but management is the biggest hurdle traders face, because at the end of the day, it's what makes you, one, consistent and profitable. And if you haven't got a clearly, like if you're struggling, make a clearly defined exit management strategy around your, however you trade. So that could be fixed R, trailing stop, end of day close. There's a multitude of ways to do it, but give yourself something very easy to follow. So it's, okay, I've entered the trade, I've got a 1 to 4 hard TP, or 1 to 4 50% off, and then I'll go to break even, or there's various things, but have that in place and stick to it religiously every single time. 20 trades, 30 trades, whatever your sample size you want to do it with, not 2-3 trades. That's not enough. It's got to be 15, 20 trades at least. And then you can say, because you should be journaling them as well, whether that's, if you've not been disciplined enough to physically type them out into an Excel spreadsheet first, you should be doing it that way first before going to something automatic. In my opinion, that was how I was taught to do it. Because if you can't be bothered to do it manually first, you're not going to be bothered to do it even if it's automatic. So, and then
do you use an automatic thing? Sorry,
I do now. Yeah, I use Edgewonk. Yeah.
So is that good?
So I can just I really like it. Yeah, it's quite. You can put like quite a lot of key data into it. We'll probably do, but when because they're doing a new update on it. So when Rolf's done the new update on it, we'll do a little sort of session on it, just show you like the ins and outs of it and how good it is, how you can use it to your advantage. But when you've got that data, you're recording the data of these trades, and you should be recording like the maximum favorable excursion and excursion. You can say, well, actually, I'm leaving money on the table here now because 70% of my trades are going 7R or 8R or whatever it is, or 1R or 2R. And you can say, well, right, okay, well, now I've been consistent in exiting trades and following this management system. I'm going to change it to, if you were doing, say, 1 to 4, I'm going to do 1 to 7 now, because that's what the data says. You're not just saying, I'm going to do that because I feel like the last trades have, mooned, because it could just be the market cycle and it's very expansive. So you've got in it moments where there's been a big expanse in the market. So the R available is more than what the tested edge should over a set period give you. So you're not just, and then, you're saying, right, okay, well, now it's 1 to 7, or you just add some tweaking it slightly. You're not saying, right, okay, well, I'm going to go 1 to 20. It's too big a jump. Even if the data says go 1 to 20, right, okay, let's look at 1 to 20 as the final target then, but let's take 50% off at 1 to 7 or 1 to 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Because if you've not got that fixed management, what are you basing it on? Guts?
Yeah.
And because you're leaving it open to your emotions then, because we all know we're calm, click that button and emotions can start coming in. Oh, it's moving up a bit aggressively. What's moving against me aggressively? Oh, it's been ranging sideways for 15 minutes. Oh, should I close it? Should I do this? Should I do that? If you've got strict rules, this is where I get out. This is what I do. This is what happens when this does that. If then syntax, you follow that. And if you don't follow it, you're like, right, okay, well, it was a psychological mistake. Why was that psychological mistake? How was I feeling? Why was I triggered like that? Or it moved that way. It moved, and then once you've got that and you can look at it objectively, then look at moving it. But I'd always suggest that you start off smaller and then work up bigger, there's no point saying, well, I'm going to do 1 to 10s because that's what everyone else is doing. Well, don't worry about what everyone else is doing. If 1 to 4 suits you and your psychology for the moment, do 1 to 4s, do 1 to 2s, 1 to 1s even, not necessarily just 1 to 1s, but at least, 1 to 2, you've got you're building that habit again. And then it's like, right, okay, well, I can now move that up. I've followed that. So let's do 1 to 5s. Data says I'm doing 1 to 10, so I'll do 1 to 5, see if I can do 1 to 5s and slowly building up. And then, that's when you can start, holding either bigger portions of your volume for longer, because people get trapped in this. Bob's doing 150R trades.
Yeah. Look at
it. You don't know how much volume, but you don't know how much volume he's got on there. He might have 10% on it, and it's all that trying to make your own decisions on other people's judgments. And it's, I've been in that trap myself before. Seeing people are doing 1 to 20s, 1 to 10s, and you're like, yeah, well, I should be doing that, and you're like, well, and then you start doing that or trying to go for it, and because of how you see the market, doesn't allow you to necessarily always get that. So
Yeah.
that exit management strategy, is also one to preserve risk as much as maximize, the expectancy of your edge. So yeah, I would urge anyone who hasn't got a solid exit management system and are struggling with taking profits to do this method first. And if you're still inconsistent with that, then there's probably something else underlying that you're missing. Maybe, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, what do you find it? Have you been discretionary in profit taking, or are you very fixed in how you?
Very fixed the majority of the time. I mean, especially now, for a while now, I've just been doing a trailing stop loss. And that for me is, I go on about this in the course and everything. But that for me is the most discretionary way I've found, because I do it below what I call 1 minute swing highs or lows. And that just for me, you're following the order flow of the market. If it breaks the other way, prices decide to go the other way. And it's just a very black and white rule where you just move the stop loss if it breaks and closes above this high or below the low.
Yeah.
So for me, that's the easy way. I know a lot of people use partials or set targets of, the next 15-minute high or the next supply demand zone. And that's great. And I don't think you can tell people how exactly they should manage trades, because that is a very personal thing psychologically. And I would, it's almost like telling people exactly what to do with their money, because once you're in a trade, that is kind of up to you. I can give advice and tell you what I do, but it might not suit your personality. So it really is the kind of thing you have to experiment with, like you say.
That I was going to say, if you didn't touch on it, that is the one element really that has got to be very personal to you. To be fair, I actually heard something quite interesting before we jumped on this call. It was and it was actually on exit management, and they were saying that to understand for yourself what type of person you are. So if a trade's, like, they were using monetary figures. So if a trade's gone to 6,000 but comes back to 3,000, are you happy to get out at 3,000? Or are you happy to get out at 3,000, but if it goes to 6,000, are you happy that you got out at 3,000? And I think we're probably very different in that respect, is that I have very specific fixed TP points.
Right.
Whereas you're happy for it to go X amount of percentage up and come back and stop you out at whatever level that is.
Yeah.
But it's personal. And that's,
you've
got to find out and know that about yourself in order to, get the best, one from a systematic point of view, but also from an emotional point of view as well. Because there's no point saying you've got fixed take profit levels if you're emotionally inclined like yourself to be able to, well, I'm happy for it to come back because I know that it could just carry on mooning. And I'm just very happy to manage it in that way. So or a combination of two. So you'll say, I'm going to trail my stop, but if it hits this X 4-hour daily high or whatever, then that's my final TP target kind of thing. So you've got a mixture of the two if you want to do it that way.
I will take that into account sometimes. So there is a little bit of discretion there. If it is a daily 4-hour zone and price shoots up into it, and then my stop loss is all the way down here, it doesn't give me a chance to trail it
Yeah,
up,
trail it.
I will be a bit, a bit more, what do you call it, aggressive with moving it up, just because, you don't want to let that kind of profit go.
Yeah.
It makes sense. It's all about making sense.
And that's it. Yeah, logic.
Yeah. But the other thing about management is, I would say, there's no way that's going to be right 100% of the time, like anything in trading. And people, I think, try and get lost trying to find that one way that's going to make them the most money in every single trade. But at some point, you've just got to accept and stick to a method that just, like you say, works emotionally and technically best for you, and you find it the easiest to stick to. So yeah, that's management covered and smashed.
So now you still be smashing all these trades out now, guys.
But yeah, how long have we been talking now? Should we?
Probably too long. Probably wrap it up.
Should we wrap this up? Well,
yeah, let's wrap it up.
Thank you very much for joining me. It's been great listening to your thoughts, David. And we'll find you on Instagram.
Find me on Instagram. We'll put my link in the description below.
Might even get something there or next to you.
Or there. Probably here. Something like that.
There. Or maybe I just won't. Or maybe put it on the other side to mug you up.
You'll be able to magic that up, shouldn't you?
Yeah. And yeah, you can also find you in the Magic FX Academy Discord, giving little hints here and there. We will meet again, I'm sure. And I wish you the best for the rest of your day. You got many plans? You working?
No, just heading out. Yeah, got some work to do with business. So heading out, do that after this call, and then back for London session tomorrow morning. So
all right.
Okay.
All right, well, enjoy, mate.
See you later, Dan.
I'll see you later.
Yeah.